All right, hey everybody, my name is Justin Greer. I am the founder, creator, and currently the lead developer for WordPress OAuth Server. So I have here on my screen a brand new Moodle site and a WordPress site. Pay attention to, or just take note of the domain name here. I am using .site. I'm using this as local on my Windows computer, and I'm using MAMP Pro to run these locally, but this will work across the board on all private or public domains and servers. So we need a couple things here. We're going to need Moodle installed, obviously, which is what we have here. I am logged into basically a blank Moodle site. And we also are going to need WordPress installed. And that's what we have here. This is just a basic WordPress site. I have already installed WP OAuth Server. If you want to go pick that up, just head over to wp-oauth.com and then click Buy Now. You can also use the free version for this one. So if you head over to wordpress.org and you type in OAuth Server or WP OAuth Server in the plugin repository, you're going to find WP OAuth Server there. And you can use that one too as well. And just make sure that that's installed in WordPress. And the last thing but not least, it is pretty early here in Ohio, but you're going to need coffee because things can get a little hectic. And hopefully we don't run into them. I guess it would be benefit if we ran into them, but we shouldn't have any issues with this. So let's get started with WP OAuth Server installation configuration for getting it ready for Moodle that we're going to use with a Moodle site. So if you head over to your WordPress admin dashboard, there's this is the basic dashboard that you have here. And once you have WP OAuth Server installed, you're going to see a little menu on the left-hand side, OAuth Server, and you're going to have sub menu items here, clients, settings, and status. Once you've taken care of possibly the license, if you're going to use the Pro version, once you have that, head over to settings and just make sure that in the general settings, make sure that you enable WP OAuth Server. We made a decision not to enable this by default just because it does access and it opens up access to some of the API stuff, not necessarily making it insecure, but just another endpoint that someone can hit. And so we keep it disabled to begin with. And so we're going to need to enable that and just go ahead and click Save Settings or Save Changes. Then we're going to head over to clients, and this is where we're going to enter the client information that we're going to create that Moodle is going to use. So for the client name, I'm going to enter Moodle, just Moodle test. All right, and for the redirect URL, this is where it's going to get a little interesting because Moodle doesn't technically give you a direct way to know what this is other than just kind of looking it up. And I found out that for the way we need to set Moodle up, we're going to need to use the .php extension. So you might see, if you look up OAuth 2 connection, like redirect URLs on Moodle, you're going to notice that it has the Moodle site at, /admin /OAuth2 callback with no .php. We don't want that one. That works for if you're using Google and stuff for single sign-on. Since we're using a custom OAuth 2 connection piece, we're going to need the .php. So what I'm going to enter here, because this is what my domain name is for Moodle, is just http /Moodle.site /admin /OAuth2 callback.php. And this could be whatever your site is. Just take note of the admin /OAuth2 callback in the redirect URL. The next thing that we're going to need to do is make sure that authorization code is checked. It should be checked, but just make sure that that's checked. And really, there's nothing else that we need to do right here other than just click Create Client. Once the client is created, you're going to see new information pop up, and mainly it's just the client ID and client secret. And you're going to see that under here, under the redirect URL, it's going to pop up and give you the information for the client ID and client secret. And from this point, we have the client set up, and we have all the information showing that we're going to need. So we don't need to do anything else. So now what we're going to do is head over to Moodle, our Moodle installation, and we're going to log in as an administrator, somebody that has the administrator privileges. And if you can't see this menu, go ahead and click the hamburger menu over here. And what we're looking for is the site administration button in Moodle. And when we click that, you're going to have your site administration stuff. So we're going to head over here to the sub tabs and click on server. From server, we are going to look for something called OAuth Services. And this should be under the server tab, just as you see it here. I am using the latest Moodle, which I believe is 3.9.2. It is the latest, and today is September 18th. So whatever the current version is, but I am using the latest. You are going to need the latest version to follow along with this, as well as WordPress. I am using the latest version of WordPress. So go ahead and click on OAuth Services. And here is where we're going to add a new custom service to the OAuth Services for Moodle. And we're going to click Create New Custom Service, and we're going to be presented with some information here. For the name for my client name, what I'm going to use is I'm just going to use WordPress test. And this could be anything, your website name typically. The name is going to be shown on the single sign-on button. So it behooves you when you're doing this to put it that someone's going to know what this button is. And so I'm just doing WordPress test. If I was going to be creating a single sign-on button saying -10 Digital, which is our parent company, then I would put -10 Digital here, and Moodle will make it clear that the button, when they add it to the login screen, is actually going to be single sign-on for -10 Digital users. So for the next field here, we have the client ID, and what we're going to do is we're going to head over to WordPress. We're going to copy that client ID that the plugin gave us. And same goes for client secret. So I'm just copying that and using shortcuts here and putting that into the client secret. We're going to leave authenticate token request via HTTP headers unchecked. We're also not going to touch anything in the login requests for scopes or the login offline access for scopes. We're not going to put anything in for additional parameters, and we're not going to do anything for additional parameters for offline access. For the service base URL, we are going to enter our WordPress website domain, and that's it. We're not going to enter anything else. Just so that is what my local host is. And for login domains, you don't need to put anything in here, but let's say you have multiple single sign-on for this service from different domains, and you can whitelist them here. If you don't, it's just going to use the service base URL that you input. In the logo URL, we're not going to put anything on that. We are going to click Show Login Page, and then we're going to just make sure that we have everything put in the way we need it. And we can always come back and change it later, but do it right the first time. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to enter our custom imports and tell Moodle what the endpoints are for our OAuth server. Now, WP OAuth Server does use your standard endpoints for authorization and token. However, there is no standard in the draft for tokens, user information, so user info. And with that, typically a lot of places just kind of use their own endpoint for it. And WP OAuth Server, it's not an exception. It uses its own endpoint that you're going to have to probably put in. So, well, actually, you know what? There we go. It auto-inputted everything for us. But Let's just say, so the auto discovery did work for us in this part. And what it did is it looked up, it pinged the WP OAuth server over on our WordPress site, and it auto-populated all the inputs that it thinks it's going to need. Really, there's only 3 inputs that we really do need, and that's going to be your authorization endpoint, your token endpoint, and your user info endpoint. Those are the 3 things that you're absolutely going to have. Now, let's just say, for the sake of argument, we're just going to get rid of basically everything here and cover what happens when the endpoints don't populate. What happens if you set this up and it doesn't work and these are not in here? All right, so we got that started up, and this is kind of what the window will look like if nothing populated after you've created the OAuth 2 connection piece. So what we do is you just go down here to click new endpoint, and forgive me one sec while I pull up something else on the other computer here. And we're going to create a new endpoint. And the first endpoint that we're going to need to create is the authorization endpoint. So let's just we're going to do the authorization input. So we're just going to do authorization underscore endpoint. Just making double sure that that's what that is. And for the URL, we're going to need to put the full server domain as well as the OAuth endpoint. So in our case, it is https WordPress.site /OAuth / now I'm going to stop right here just for a second. I am going to copy this so I don't have to keep on writing this over. All the endpoints from this point on will be your domain /OAuth / something. So I'm going to copy this just so I don't have to type it out all the time. And the authorization endpoint for OAuth 2 across the board is pretty standard, is just authorize. So we are going to put authorize, and then we're going to make sure that we put a / at the end. So a trailing /. We're going to click Save Changes. Moodle is going to see that here. Basically, we're going to be rebuilding that thing that it kind of auto-populated for us before. And we're doing this because I have had this not work for whatever reason. So it's good to know how to do this if things go haywire. Also, it's good to know this if you need to use a custom endpoint for whatever reason, and then that's more advanced stuff. The next input the endpoint that we need to put for this to work is going to be the token endpoint. And this is where Moodle gets the information. It's authorized, but it needs to get the token. So it needs to do some exchanging of code, authorization code, and gets the token. It's also where it requests an access token, and open ID token, or an ID token in this case. But so the endpoint is token, and again, everything in Moodle for endpoints has endpoint at the end of it. So token underscore input. And let's go down here, and again, I'm just going to copy or paste in my main domain with / OAuth, and again, it's going to be token / So we're going to have an ending / at the end of that one. Hit save, and let's go ahead and do that again. And this time, we're going to tell Moodle where the endpoint is that it needs to reach out to, actually with the access token or the ID token, and reach out to get the user information that just authorized. So for that, it's user info underscore, and again, endpoint. And the URL is once again the base URL. So https / in our case, our website where WP OAuth Server is installed is WordPress.site, and then OAuth. And for this is custom to WP OAuth, and you can change this in settings and customizations through filters. But out of the box, the endpoint for user information with WP OAuth is me. And we're going to hit Save Changes. And like I mentioned earlier, these are the 3 endpoints that are must-haves for Moodle to work. What I have done is I went over into WordPress just so you guys are familiar with what I've done here. And this is a brand new site. Obviously, I'm set up as the administrator. I created a test user, a subscriber called Moodle with a simple password that I can remember for testing. And with that set up, it's going to be, I'm going to head back over here to Brave, make sure that I'm signed out of everything for demonstration purposes. So I'm starting fresh, and let's just say this is your Moodle site. Your visitor goes there and they see your site. Now, obviously this is not set up, but when they go click in, you're going to see something that pops up. It's going to be an extra button, and it says log in using your account on WordPress test. So again, this text right here is actually part of the settings for that OAuth 2 identifier, the issuer. So here, so I can change this to whatever I want. So let's just say Dash 10 Digital was the company that the users are familiar with in my case, and I'm sending them over to an LMS that I created, and I want their account to be synced up. I want them to be able to use their WordPress account that for my site on the new LMS site, so I don't have to transfer passwords and everything. And when they click to go log in, it's going to say log in using your account now on Dash 10 Digital. When they click that, they're going to be taken, oh, hold on, no user information was returned. OAuth server may be configured, or the OAuth 2 service may be configured incorrectly. Let's make sure that we haven't. It sucks that there was an issue, but I guess it goes to prove and troubleshooting even myself, the creator of the plugin and the lead developer, that I still run into things every now and then. So just want to make sure that everything is in here the way it is, and just go through everything that I need to go through. All right, so one of the other things that we need to do that I didn't do, and I need to show you now, is first off, rule of thumb, never believe auto discovery. Never rely on it, I should say. You can believe it if it finds it, you can believe it. But one of the things that we have to do is we have to map the fields from Moodle to WordPress. Now, you can go through this and you do one and you might understand how this works. So basically, how WordPress stores its user information, like first name, last name, email, username, given name, and how Moodle stores their information in the database differ. And we need to make sure that when WordPress says email, that Moodle knows it's the email that it's looking for. In this case, the only thing that matches with Moodle and WordPress is the field email. So, and that's all you need. So that's all we're going to cover. If you go over to your OAuth 2 services and you see that we have my Dash 10 Digital OAuth 2 service configured, we're going to click on this little icon, this little guy here, and we're going to click on it for configure user field mappings. In here, we're going to, well, we'll delete that one. We're going to map email to email. That's the only one that we actually need to get this actually working. So in this external field name, we're going to say email equals email. Hit save changes. You could also do like, let's see, a field name that WP OAuth Server gives might be nickname. Yeah, that's probably right. I don't think we actually do nickname. And so this field is the one that's coming from WP OAuth Server, and we want it to be the alternate name. There we go. So the field from WordPress going into the field from Moodle. We're going to hit save changes. And we have our fields mapped. And now we can go through the process of testing our setup with our test user. In my case, I created a test user on WordPress called Moodle. Probably out of the box, what's going to happen is the user is going to be presented with a verification process, because that's how Moodle has it set up by default, but you can disable the verification process in these settings, and then the user will just come right in. We're going to just leave that on. And as long as this works, then you are set up, and then it just kind of, the settings is kind of preference to how you want it. So we're going to log in with -10 Digital, and my user from -10 Digital that I want to come over to Moodle to have single sign-on is Moodle. So let's just assume I'm just a user, and I enter my information because I want to go into the LMS. What this is doing is this is bouncing back and forth behind the scenes with Moodle, saying, hey, here's our code, here's our authentication token, here's our ID token, and here's this user's information. So your user out of the box may be presented with this, and an email should be sent to your address, moodle@test.com, because that's the email address I have set up in my local. It contains easy instructions to complete your registration. If you continue to have difficulty, contact the site administrator. This is what your user may see if you don't, if you have the email verification part still active, and it is active on the default Moodle. So just go ahead and delete that, and then this user will come right in. It'll come right in, like right into the site, and they won't even see any of the login screen. They won't see none of the back and forth, and they won't see this. It'll just be seamless. Now, let's say that before we get started, let's take this user and act like they've already activated it. Go here, go to users. We're going to confirm that user. All right. And head back over to Brave. All right. So let's just hit continue. And there you have it. Oh, no, we're at the home screen. All right. So the user's already been confirmed, or you don't have the setting on Moodle to confirm the email. They're going to click your single sign-on button, and then it's basically just going to take them right into your Moodle setting, or your Moodle site, just as it is. Now, if all you have is the user email installed, you're going to be presented, your users are going to be presented with this message that's saying like something's not right because your account is not fully set up. What it wants is its first name and last name. So the first time your users do this, they may have to enter their first name, surname, and that would be it. You can also set this up for your users in the mapping, and I might make another video about how mapping works in general. But Moodle, to have a full account set up from the get-go, it wants a first name, the surname, and an email address. Now, we did map the email address, but that's all we mapped, other that and the nickname. And we didn't really need to do the nickname. It was just demonstrating that. But once your users finish their profile, they will be now logged into your Moodle account using their login information from Moodle, or from WordPress into Moodle. And they only have to do that one time. So now every time they come back and they click on login, and then they want to log in with -10 Digital, you're going to it's just going to be seamless right into your Moodle site. Just to recap on what we did, we took and connected a WordPress website to a new Moodle website, LMS site that we have created. And we did that by using WordPress OAuth Server. You can download that plugin either by going to wp-oauth.com, or you can download that plugin by going to wordpress.org and searching for WP OAuth Server. And we used that and allowed our users from WordPress to come right over into Moodle and created that single sign-on process. It is a little bit of a settings game, but once you get it set up, you'll never have to do it again. And it's good to know it's a good user flow for your users. And with that, I hope that helped. We're out. If you have an idea or need more information, just leave a comment in the video, and happy coding.